Okay, today I wanted to share a little bit about my philosophy on teaching math. I've been teaching with Right Start Math for about 5 years now, and if you've read anything on my blog for any length of time, you will know that it is one of my favorite programs. And when I found it, my daughter was struggling with math, and it has made all the difference for her in understanding the concepts of what she is doing, and it has made her successful in math. So it's funny that I have a math philosophy at all because I have never really enjoyed math myself and have never been very good at math. But through Right Start, I have learned a lot and my own math has really improved. So I wanted to share a little bit about how I teach math with Right Start because one of my friends who's new to homeschooling was asking me a little bit about how I teach math, especially when my kids are young, how I start introducing the topics to them. And so I wanted to share with her and with you a little bit of my thoughts. When I was living back in Texas, I had a friend who was also a public school teacher. She taught kindergarten, and she shared me one of the major goals of her school district for kids in kindergarten was that they needed to count to 100. And they worked all year long to get the kids to count to 100. And I always wondered why it mattered because the kids had no idea what they were saying. They didn't know what any of those numbers meant. And then my friend shared with me that her friend really teaches her kids to write all their numbers. It's really important that they learn to recognize the numbers and to be able to write them. And I don't really agree with either of those methods. That's not how I have been teaching math to my kids. I teach it differently. I try to focus on teaching the concepts behind the numbers. So seeing a number three, seeing that symbol, it's very abstract, especially to little kids. They don't understand what the number three means. It really means nothing to them. So instead, I try to make math more concrete and more visual because that really helps younger kids be able to see what that means. So I'll show you with some of the Right Start manipulatives how I do this. So one of the things I start with is I start by teaching the concept behind the symbols. So I teach what the numbers mean. I don't worry about if my kids can recognize the number three. I worry if they know that this is three. Right here, these are the little colored tiles. They're inch tiles from Right Start, and I show them different numbers, and they have to know this is 3, this is 2, here's 1. So I work on them being able to recognize what that number means. We also compare numbers. If I have 2 and my child has 1, we talk about who has more, who has less, and we start comparing and doing different things with the different manipulatives before we ever do anything on paper. We start with that. I don't do a lot of written work. I don't worry about if my kids can write the numbers or if they can do arithmetic on paper. We do it all with the manipulatives in the beginning. One of the things we do instead of worksheets, we use our math balance. And this is a fun tool from Right Start. So if I were to put something on the number 10, here you can see it's going to go down. I would give my child 2 to put on the other side. And so they might choose to put 1 on 3 and see if I can reach it. Put 1 over here on 7. Oop, did I miss the 3? There it is. And so they would learn that I made 10 and on their side they made 10 and it is balanced. It is completely level, which means that their equation is equal. So that's one way that we do, instead of worksheets, we actually do a lot of math on our math balance. And we build a lot of equations that way so they can understand what numbers are equal. Another thing we do is we count the math way. And I had never heard of this before using Right Start. But after using it with 2 of my kids, it took me a while to really understand the reasoning behind why we were doing this. But now I really see the value in doing it. So instead of counting the way that you and I would count, once you get to 10, we don't say 10, we call it 110. And then it's 110 1, 110 2, 110 3. When you get to 20, that's 210. So you have 210 1, 210 2, 210 3, and so on. And when you get to 100, it is 1010. And what that teaches is it helps kids understand what those numbers mean. So 100 is not this nebulous, abstract concept that they can't even begin to picture. It is 10 tens put together. And we demonstrate that really clearly with the abacus. Each of these rows has 10, And when you put them all on the abacus, you enter them all. That's 10 tens, which is 100. So you have a full abacus. So using the abacus, we teach those number relationships. And they're easy to see because of the color changes, so you can quickly group the numbers. And it helps kids group them visually. And then later, they're able to group them in their mind. So they're able to do mental math really quickly because they're seeing the number groupings. Like here, you can see 5 and 2 is 7. You don't have to count each individual bead. Your mind automatically groups those and you know what this means. And so it really helps their mental math skills. As they get up into even bigger numbers, they're still able to do them in their head because they are grouping them in their mind and they're seeing the number relationships and they're really able to do math quickly. So I also make sure that math is very visual, very kinesthetic. We do a lot of movement. Using all these manipulatives really makes it hands-on. And so it really sticks with my kids. They really remember the concepts that we're learning. I don't emphasize counting. We emphasize just being able to recognize, like, this is 3. I don't have them count it every time. They just need to know this is 3. They don't have to count it. They can know that this is 2. And that's how the abacus is really helpful, is they can quickly visualize the numbers and they don't have to count them. They can see how they're grouped by color and they know exactly what number they're looking at. Teaching place value, that's a really hard concept for a lot of kids. So we use these place value cards right here. So we have 490, but kids can see that the 400 is still here. It's not a 4 and then a 9. It's 490. So it really helps them understand what place all the numbers are in so that they can remember that. And then I also use these cards. These are the little place value cards. Here's 100, here's a 10, and here's 1 unit. And we use these and we actually spread these out on the floor and we do a lot of math problems just using these cards. So my kids will be adding numbers and they will have 10 of these ones all in a row. And they will know that that is too many. They can't have 10 because that could easily be traded for one of these cards because this is a stick with 10 in it. So it looks a lot like the abacus. You can see it kind of has the light and dark colors. So it looks very similar. And they know that once they have 10 ones, they need to make a 110. Or if they have 10 tens, that is 100, 10, 10 right here. And so we actually do a lot of our math problems on the floor spread out with these little place value cards so they learn what the numbers mean. So anyway, I just wanted to share how I teach Right Start, how it's made teaching math a little bit different in my house, but it's been very, very effective because my kids are not only able to do math, they have great mental math abilities and they're very accurate when they do math because they understand the concept behind what they're doing. And so I don't worry if my kindergartner can't correctly write all of their numbers yet or can't recognize all the numbers. I am just worried if do they know that this is 2? Can they recognize it with different objects and using the manipulatives? And then from there we progress to being able to learn the symbols and being able to write it on paper. So that's how I've done it a little bit differently in our homeschool, but it has made a huge difference in my kids' understanding.